This is Young Dave Invites, and I'm here with Hello Ego. Hello Ego. How you doing?
I'm doing great, Young Dave. Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, man. We've known each other for almost 2 years at this point, and I feel like you would be. Well, I was thinking for months you'd be a perfect guest for my show, and then that one night in San Diego, I told you about wanting you on my show, and you said, "Yeah, I've been thinking the same thing exactly."
I was waiting for it, man. Yeah, like I heard Jacob Manifolds, our mutual friend. I heard him come on and thought it was really cool, and I've been hearing you talk about it, and I was just like, I told myself I wasn't going to ask or be like, hey man, can I do this? And just wait for you to do it, and I was really appreciative that you are having me. So this is great.
Yeah, things come together at the right time.
They do. It's true.
So for this interview, we're going to talk about your background, your musical background, your history, and all that. And to start things off, tell me about your educational background. Because I remember a few months ago, you posted on your Instagram about you in music school back in 2016. Tell me about the details of that.
Sure. So let me back up a little bit to get to what led to there, because that was a weird branch of time I got into in my music education. So I started off playing French horn when I was 8 and continued on with that into undergrad, got my undergrad in French horn performance. Didn't really know what to do after that, and I wanted to continue my education while I figured things out, so I continued on to a master's degree in French horn as well. And so around the time I started my master's program is where I started getting interested in electronic music, but not like dance music. This is more experimental stuff. So we're talking John Cage, very, very like high, weird, experimental sort of, recording the sounds of burning matches and things like that. So I was very deep into this, and I ended up learning a lot about programs like Max MSP, which is now known as Max for Live. Ableton acquired the company, but back before that, I was doing a lot of graphic-based coding in Max MSP to create the music that I wanted to make. And what I wanted was this high level of interaction between the performer and the program that I was writing. So it was like a collaborative experience. So I was writing a lot of music for French horn and Max MSP, where there would be a lot of timed situations happening, or I would hit a certain note and it would trigger a series of events, and then do things like send audio out through like an octaphonic array of speakers and spin it around the audience and loop certain parts of it. And I also, around the time, to get to that Instagram post that you were talking about, there was some pictures of me playing a cactus, a barrel cactus. And actually sitting right behind you over there is the baby of that same barrel cactus that you saw in that Instagram. There was a John Cage piece or study or something that he did where he attached contact microphone to the spines of a barrel cactus, and all of these spines are connected with an internal skeleton, and if you pluck them, you can amplify the sound of the cactus. So I would go around playing a lot of pieces for amplified cactus, and
that would hurt though, right?
No, if you do it right, you gotta practice it. I definitely stabbed myself a few times, a lot actually, but eventually you kind of get the feel for it, and you don't really stab yourself too much. So that was kind of my first thought too when I was starting to play around with it. Eventually, shortly after I moved to Seattle, I started writing pieces for Cactus Electronics, where the input from the cactus, based on how strong it was or the frequency of the plucks, would trigger a series of events in Max MSP. And yeah, it was funny, one time while I was living in South Carolina, that's where I did the majority of my master's program. I walked into a bar and met some guy and told him my name, and he's like, "You're the cactus guy." So apparently word had spread about some weirdo playing a cactus. So
it's wonderfully fascinating. The stuff that you do is wonderfully intricate. I'd say more very complex and more complicated than 99.99% of the scene. Would you also consider you're also classically trained in regards to your French horn practice, right? Mm-hmm. Where did you study?
I got my undergrad at Ohio University in Athens, Ohio. and I got my master's. I started off the first year at University of New Mexico in Albuquerque, and then I ended up finishing it over at University of South Carolina in Columbia, South Carolina.
I see. Moving on with your educational background, you are also a former instructor for the Icon Collective. Tell me the background behind that, how you got into Icon Collective as an instructor, as well as the courses and classes you taught.
Sure. Kind of a funny story. I didn't really take music production seriously, like at least bass music production, until 2020. Late 2020, I moved out here to Long Beach, where me and my wife currently live. And shortly after we moved here, in mid 2021, I was looking for jobs. And I was on one of those job posting websites, and I saw, oh, look, Icon Collective is hiring instructors. And I was like, I talked to my wife, and I was like, wow, wouldn't it be funny? You know, like I should try, should I try and apply? And she was like, yeah, you should do it. I was like, nah, they're never going to hire me. Literally 3 months ago, I was looking at their program, wanting to attend it as a student. I was like, there's no way I could hire. She's like, just do it. Like, the worst is you don't get the job. And I was like, you know what? You're right. That makes a lot of sense. I'd only been producing for about a year and a half at that point, so I felt very much like I was not qualified in any way to do anything like that. I told myself if I got the gig, then I would fully believe in manifest destiny and the results of actually trying. So yeah, I got the job. I was one of 15 instructors hired out of a pool of like 600 applicants or something like that. And so I was very happy that I was on the team and felt a huge sense of, what is the word? Imposter syndrome. I felt like I was very much like an imposter among all these other insanely good producers.
So you said that you only used Ableton for a year and a half?
No, I was using Ableton as a sound designer for marching bands, which is something we can get into as well, since 2015. And I've actually been using Ableton since about 2011 or 2012. I was playing bass guitar in a funk band in undergrad, and I just wanted to kind of like branch out on my own and make my own music. And so I picked up Ableton and ended up using it there, but started using it for my job in 2015. So at this point now, I've been using it for over a decade.
I see. Mm-hmm. In terms of your time at Icon Collective, what have been the most inspiring things, or like delving into the finer details, what you teach students?
Sure. So let me start with what I was teaching there. I taught a little bit of a lot of things. I taught Ableton, sound design, advanced sound design, several levels of music theory, several levels of ear training, groove theory, Ableton live performance, a lot of private lessons and one-on-one mentoring as well. Probably forgetting a few things, to be honest. Synthesis, that was another one that I did. Advanced synthesis, things like that. And yeah, so I mean, at first I think they hired me because I understood music theory. I actually had a background, like a master's degree in music, which is something that I don't think a lot of producers have. So that's kind of why I think they hired me. But they eventually realized that, I could do more and I could teach more, and so they got me on more classes, which I was really grateful for. And then to the second part of that question, what was the most inspiring parts of it, I think it was the people, man, 100%. Like I still, a lot of my friends right now are former students from Icon. One of my favorite things is being able to go out to shows around the area and just run into tons of students. I've, made music with a bunch of them past that point. I've, continued to mentor several of them as well. And I just really got this, rejuvenation from working with all of these people who were early on in their production journey. And I really love teaching. I very much enjoy it. It's one of those things I'm very serious about and have a great time with. So that, I think, was the most inspiring thing for me. It was just every day being surrounded by hundreds of producers and students and teachers alike who were just talented and passionate and dedicated.
Sounds wonderful. Yeah. One thing you mentioned to me months ago is that you're and you just mentioned right now, is that you're a sound designer for a marching band?
For a bunch of marching bands and a drum corps. So, okay. Earlier I mentioned that I started my master's in New Mexico and wound up in South Carolina. Well, the reason for that was because my French horn instructor, a guy named J.D. Shaw, I went to New Mexico to study with him. I really loved him as a teacher. I thought he was fantastic. And I was there for 1 year, and I won the assistantship, which is basically like the top chair position, and you get, financing from the school to be that person. But at the same time that I got that, I didn't know that I got it yet when we all got together as a studio, and our teacher, JD, he was like, I have some news. I'm moving to South Carolina to continue working there. And then I had a lesson with him the hour after, and he's like, so, bad news. You understand it now. I'm leaving. Potentially the good news. I want you to keep working with me. So I'm giving you and only you the choice. You can come with me to South Carolina. I have a guaranteed spot for you there. We can keep working together. I have no assistantship for you there, but you have a spot. Or you stay here and keep the assistantship. I chose to move across the country to keep working with him. And that was the best possible move I could have ever made, because he was so supportive about my interest in electronic music. I loved it way more than French horn. He knew it, and like I would do so much more work for that than I would for the French horn degree. And he was very supportive of that. He was the one who first got me my gig with a drum corps. Drum corps is like professional marching band, all right? So, you think of marching band as like high schoolers, football games, things like that. Drum corps is adults, young adults, and they tour the country. So I started working that year doing sound design for a group called the Santa Clara Vanguard. Then I went into a French horn lesson one day, and he was like, man, you made so many sounds, we have to hire someone to run the mixer for us this summer. And I was like, I'm not doing anything. He's like, okay, let me ask. So I got hired as, in addition to being the sound designer, I was their live audio engineer, lived on a bus for 2 summers in 2015, 2016, toured the country with them. And while I was on tour with them, I realized that there's a huge need for sound design at the high school level too. So starting, I wasn't even out of my grad school yet, and I started my career as a marching band sound designer. And I usually work with about 15 to 20 high schools every year. I got out of the drum corps thing for a while, swore I'd never get back into it again. It was a lot, it was a lot. It was great to get me going on the high school thing. But then in 2022, I got the phone call, and they're like, hey, JD and the new team, a lot of the people I love from Santa Clara, work with a new drum corps called Phantom Regiment, and they wanted me to come on for that. And so I work with them currently and have for the past 2 years. This is my 4th year with them right now. So yeah, and what that entails, because I know that's the question, everyone always asks the question, what does a marching band need electronics for, right? The band has their show. They're out there in the field, they're marching, they're playing around. There's a front ensemble with marimbas up front and like vibraphones. I design systems that wire them all up for microphones. They also have synthesizers like MIDI controllers. I get them all running Ableton. I design samples to be played along with the marching band show. I design the synth patches. I design these sound systems, and they need to be put together and torn down and put together in under 2 minutes. That's the rule. Otherwise, they get penalized. And we're talking massive sound systems. Like, sometimes it's like four dual-inch woofer, dual 18-inch woofers, 6 stacks of speakers, and 32 channels running a bunch of wireless and things. It's kind of a nuts gig, really.
That sounds nuts. I played trumpet in marching band 2 years in high school, and we never, of course, reached that level of complexity.
It really only started around the time I got involved. I mean, it was like just beginning then. So I kind of hit the zeitgeist of the moment, where I was one of the few people that didn't do drum corps. I never marched drum corps. Everyone that's in drum corps marched drum corps. That's like, it's a very insular world, I'm one of the very few that never did it. And so I kind of came in and hit it at just this right time where electronics were starting to take off. Yeah, but my marching band in high school, we didn't do that either.
Yeah.
I actually worked with my marching band. My old high school, Lakota East, I started working with them in 2018, and I do all their sounds. Not because they knew me, because of a former student, just a random happenstance from like one person saying, hey, you should hire this. A guy that I work with, one of the designers, was there at the high school, and he's like, hey, you should hire this guy, John Kammerer. And the band director was like, wait a minute, come here. And he took him over to the wall where all the band pictures are, and he's like, this guy? And he was like, yeah. And it was just me with like the worst haircut you've ever seen in your entire life. So like, yeah, it was kind of a funny thing that I started working with them.
Sounds wonderful. Mm-hmm. Moving back to our current taste of bass music related tastes. Tell me about your previous and current tastes. And I know you said that previously, before you got into bass music, you were a fan of more experimental avant-garde music.
Can't say I ever really spent a lot of time sitting and jamming out to that kind of stuff. You know, I was really into like Cashmere Cat, you know, Flume, this really like intricate, pretty sort of electronic music, right?
It's like what I would call early future bass.
Yes, exactly.
Like very focused on melody and like that type of stuff has a lot of pop sensibilities to it.
A lot of pop sensibilities, a lot of use of granulators, you know, like that's like one of the main components as far as like the technical side of things goes, with like these crazy grainy weird sounds. I loved it. I loved the intricacy. I thought it was amazing. And I do like for a lot of years I was really into like punk music and metal as well, and so like for some reason like that blended into me liking this like weird electronic type stuff. And then of course Skrillex at the scene, you know, and that is around the time when I started really loving dubstep, you know, that and LCD Sound System, which I know is not in any way like related as far as a musical vibe goes, but like two of my favorites for a lot of years in undergrad were those two. And then over the years that transitioned into people like G. Jones and EPROM. Once I found EPROM, it was all over for me. Man,
Yeah,
I was like,
we both saw them back in February at the Bellwether.
oh, dude, probably my 5th or 6th time seeing EPROM. Like, I will go every time. He is hands down one of my favorite artists to this day, and has been for the longest time.
That was like my 4th or 5th time seeing EPROM, and that was my first time seeing G. Jones, and it was incredible.
Dude, oh my god. I saw him when he came through LA, I think for, was this his Visions tour?
Paths.
Was that?
Paths.
Paths, there we go, Paths, yes. For his Paths tour, and that was unreal, man. Oh my god. I was just like blown away. Absolutely blown away.
I wrote about the G. Jones and EPROM back to back on my blog, and I stated that they have a perfect synthesis of selections, lighting, and visuals, and all of them come together for perfection. Not to mention they have a very fast mixing style, and every single track they play is just impeccable, and they somehow manage to keep the energy 100% all the way through their set while still keeping it fresh, and that's one thing I appreciate about them.
It's very unique, very, very unique, and unlike a lot of producers, they strike this balance between melody and sound design that I think is insane. It's almost unachievable in a lot of ways, I feel like, because like their stuff, it has the most beautiful, amazing, powerful melodies with the nastiest basses, perfectly balanced, right? Like, it's amazing. I'm always in awe of those two.
Yeah, I'm so glad I got to see them this year, especially G. Jones, finally.
Yep.
Who are some other artists at the moment you really rate and listen to?
Oh, man. Lately, I've been really into Digital Ethos. Love his stuff. Sokka is another one of my favorites. Sokka's also an Icon grad as well. God, there's so many. Lumasi is a big favorite of mine. Anything that Rekno is on, I love that ratchet shit, man. I think it's so cool. Anything that Rekno's on, Arson. I know Arson and Rekno just released a track on this Good Society compilation, and it's one of my favorites. You saw me play. I opened my set with it. I played right after you at the Beach show a couple weeks ago, and I reconfigured literally my entire set the day of, just so I can include that song and start with it.
Hell yeah. Moving on to the next question, what have been some of your most favorite music experiences in recent memory? Like live concerts, nights, festivals, stuff like that?
Same but different. Dude, 100%. I love Same. It's my favorite festival I've ever been to. Maybe not including Shambhala, but if you weight it towards ease of getting to it, then definitely, yeah. I have a special place in my heart for Shambhala Music Festival. I love that one a lot. I've always had the best time there. It was actually my entry into the whole festival thing, was going to Shambhala in 2022. When the reason why I went was because I wrote the opening ceremonies music for it.
Oh yeah, I saw a video of that.
Yeah.
On Instagram.
That was my first time ever producing drum and bass, and it was like a 30-minute show of orchestral and drum and bass music. So
it sounds interesting how this opening sequence isn't a DJ set or a performance, but it's like what is essentially a showcase.
Yeah, I mean, it was a through composed 30-minute show, and there was a lot of performance along with it, like fire dancers and aerialists and acting and things like that. They told a story going through it. But yeah, that was, I didn't know what I was getting into. The only festival I'd been before that point was Hard Summer, which was not for me personally. It was a little hard, let's just say.
Yeah.
And so that to me was the eye-opening experience. I'm like, oh, this is where it's at for me. This is what I really love, the camping festival thing.
Yeah, like a fully, well, not only just like a camping festival, but a more well-rounded music festival for like, with Head Z selections and much more deeper cuts for artists they book.
And places to explore, man. I'm an explorer. Like I when I'm out at shows, I can't really stay in one place for a long time. I like to go in and out and in and out. And I'm the same way at festivals. I need to take my time to go and find the little nooks and crannies, see the art, see the like little exhibits that are going on. Those are my favorites, and that's why Same Same is one of my favorites too, because they have all that same kind of thing. It's like lightning in a bottle light, you know, like you and I were at Lightning in a Bottle. That was also dope time, dude. I had a great time there.
My first ever camping festival experience, and not only that, but my first time camping since I was a kid in elementary school.
That's like, right. I forgot you told me that.
Yeah, it's been, I guess, more than 15 years since I last camped, and jumping from no camping at all for 15 years to a 5-day festival where we're all staying up till 4 in the morning, past that, and waking up super early because we're getting baked in our tents because of the heat, was a super intense experience. And I would also dare say that it was probably the most hardest experience of my life.
Listen, dude,
yeah.
They are brutal. That's the thing about these festivals, is that they can be so brutal. And so the further along I go in time, the more bougie I get about my setup. Like now I've got a memory foam mattress. I've got this like 2-room tent that has built-in fans with it and everything. It's like a full blackout. I try and make it as comfortable as I can, because when you're going that hard that many days in a row, you get exhausted. And I'm not 21 anymore, you know? I get worn out. I need to sit.
Yeah, for 5 days you want to be comfortable for the long run, that's for sure.
You do, yeah.
Moving on to one of our last questions, and definitely something that could have been said at the start. Tell me about the backstory behind your artist alias, Hello Ego.
Sure. Okay. So, I was very involved in psychedelics for a long time, before 2020. Let's just say that, all right? Where I was having quite a number of experiences, and several of those one of those experiences involved a legitimate ego death experience. And I originally had a different name that wasn't very good. It was some combination of my name that no one could pronounce. It had little weird lines over the O. It was not working out for me. So I'm like, I need a recognizable name. I need something memorable.
Would you dare say your old alias?
Sure. Om Daka.
How do you spell that?
OHN space DAKA. It was literally the last 3 letters of my first name and the first 2 of my middle and last names.
It's like German.
Ridiculous. It was ridiculous. Yeah. Which was great when I was making experimental music, because around that time I was performing live with the modular synth. That's how I got into the modular synth thing in 2017, and from 17, 18, 19 up until 2020, those 3 or 4 years, I was part of a synth crew in Seattle that would do all hardware shows. We'd like go out under highway overpasses and throw like these little, renegade raves that were all hardware. So it was great when I was in this scene where it was like, I mean, no one's really pushing for like a great level of fame, or, the projects aren't really like, oh, I want this to be massively popular anyway, right? But once I got into the bass music production thing, and I realized I needed something that had more recognizable, a better flow, more recognizable. People weren't just like, what? Whenever I said it. That's when I decided I need to switch it up. And so I was thinking a lot about ego death, ego in general. And I also really liked the idea of having a name that ended in the same letter, with the same feeling, the same pronunciation, and had the same syllables. Hello, ego, right? I wanted that roundness to it. I wanted that sort of like neatness. And I thought of this name, Hello Ego, and the idea behind it was, okay, a lot of times people in the psychedelic community are sometimes casting the ego in a negative light, all right? Like always going for ego death, thinking that maybe this is some negative thing to get past or get over. And the truth behind it is that the ego is just part of us, like the, in the super ego. Yeah, like it's literally a balanced part of us. The ego is our own sense of self-worth, our own sense of self-importance, right? So you can have an overabundance of it where you are too full of yourself. You can have a lack of it. And I was focusing on the lack of ego because I oftentimes feel very insecure about my own music, my own abilities all the time. And I think that a lot of things that come across as egotistical are actually the result, particularly speaking of social media, this egotistical vibe of social media, I think it stems from a situation of there being a lack of ego, right? People not feeling amazing about themselves and needing to put themselves out there in a way that feels egotistical, but really it's them trying to make themselves feel seen and heard, right? This is all just completely my own, train of thought. Whether or not it's correct or not, I have no idea. It's what I was thinking at the time. So I thought, okay, what if I was wandering along a dark forest path and I run into this creature, a being, and this being is the ego, is my ego, Would I be frightened? Would it be mean? Would it be terrifying? What would it be? Like, what would that experience be like to come face to face with your own ego? Hello, ego. So that's where that came from. And also that's why I use this particular character in a lot of my graphics. That character's name is Ego. All of that came from, I wanted a physical manifestation of that. And at the time, and I also wanted it to be blobby and amorphous, like a lava lamp, right? Like I have a great love of lava lamps. That's why I have so many of them here on my desk right in front of me when I produce. So I wanted the character to have this amorphous quality. I wanted him to sometimes be able to be a puddle, sometimes be a giant looming, kaiju style monster, evil, bad, dark light. I think that exists in everyone, and I think that none of it's wrong, and so I wanted something to represent that. So.
Awesome. You mentioned hardware during your time in Seattle.
Mm-hmm.
Let's go in depth with your hardware setup right now.
Absolutely. Let's do it.
Yes, the Hello Ego Studio.
Yes. So the centerpiece is my modular synth. All right. I've had this synth in this particular size. I'm gonna turn down the volume of this here. I've had this synth, this rack, for a very long time now. Almost all of the modules are actually entirely different than when I first started, except for the Morphogene. Funny story about this one, actually. Years ago, I sold this Morphogene. And then I was at a producer hang a few years back, and my buddy had a Morphogene. And I was like, oh man, I kind of miss mine. One day I might buy it back again. I was like, I really wish I could have my Morphogene. And he was like, well, if you ever want it back again, and he pointed at it, I had completely forgotten that I'd sold my Morphogene to my friend, and my original Morphogene was sitting there staring me in my face. So I bought it back from him eventually. But the main thing, right now, this is mostly a processing rack. All of this is fully connected into Ableton. This is basically like an external processor. I have an audio interface in here, so I can easily just send audio in and out of Ableton directly into the synth, which allows me to do things like run it through tube distortion. So I have these tubes in here. All of my kicks I run through this one particular tube unit by Bizarre Jezebel. Turn this back on again. There we go. All of my synths, all of my kicks I run through this. I have really great filters in here that I love to just throw stuff through. My favorite piece that I have in the studio. And then underneath it here, we have my Moog Sub 37. Admittedly, I don't use this as much as I should, but I have had I actually use it a lot, but not necessarily this synth. What I've done is I've sampled this synth and turned it into the subs. So any of the subs that you hear in my tracks are always the Sub 37, particularly the Sub Oscillator. That's my favorite version of the subs that I made out of it. Then if we go over here, this is the most usable synth in my studio. This is my Arturia Mini Freak. I think that this is the one. If everyone's like, what synth should I get? What do I want to get into it? I told them this one because it is so high quality, stereo outputs. I use it on so many tracks. Like it's my main thing I go to when I'm trying to make a melody. And then I'll just sit and sample it for ages and ages. and take a lot of chunks out of that, run it through the synth, run it back out again. Most of my production is sample based. I do use Serum and Current. Those are my two favorite synths. I do use them a lot, but I usually get the best results when I'm just like working with audio that I took from the hardware. Then over here, we've got a really cool little unit from one of my favorite hardware manufacturers called Bastel. I actually have a module here called Dark Matter. That's a Bastel module, and Pizza, that's a Bastel module as well. And this is like a really weird digital delay. You can do things like turn the time down on it until you get this like downsampled, like bit redux almost style effect. Like, it's really sick. And you can also drive the input to get really good distortion. A lot of my basses, I'll just abuse the crap out of this thing and just drive it into it the way it's not supposed to be used, because I love the distortion it imparts. Aside from that, like, you know, I've got these Barefoot Micromain 45s. I got the micro stack with the subs. Got the subs recently. That was a great choice. I'm really happy to have them. I've got this cool little workhorse over here. Just some 500 series gear. It's got like a Shadow Hills compressor, an SSL EQ, and a 525 FET compressor in it. I mostly use this because I film a lot of tutorials, online courses, things like that, and I just needed something that was really quality. You know, I used to use this little cloud lifter, and it wasn't doing it for me after a while. It just doesn't give enough gain for the SM7B or whatever this microphone is that I use. Yeah, that's basically it for the gear. Anything I missed that you have questions about in here?
No, it looks like that's all it. And then you use Ableton, of course.
And then I use Ableton, of course. Yeah, like I've used Ableton, like I mentioned earlier, for a long time now, and it is without a doubt my DAW of choice. I like it quite a bit. So yeah, it's one of those things where I feel like you can do anything in it as long as you use a little creative thinking. You know, there are some DAWs I've worked with before where there are just limitations that you can't get around. And that's what I like about Ableton, particularly with the Max for Live thing in there now too. You can crack it open and just like, you're like, oh, I don't have this one thing that I need. If you know how to use Max for Live or Max MSP, you can get in there and code your own plugin. It's really easy to do that. So
cool. To close things off, what are your final remarks and final shout outs, things like that, as we conclude this interview?
Oh man. Final remarks and final shout outs. Well, first of all, I released a track yesterday. It's called Back to Back. It's one of my favorite tunes that are written. That's out there, available now. You can hear that. I've got another really great track coming out later this month. It's a remix of Hydrosonics and U's Pot of Greed. Super stoked about that. Hydrosonics is a homie. I'm really glad I got to remix that song. That's another one. Those two, as far as production goes, opposite ends of the spectrum. Back to Back came out in 6 hours. Pot of Greed took 6 months. And I love when things like that happen. And I should be releasing another flip. I think I'm releasing a flip of Acting Up later this month as well, at some point between now and the Pot of Greed release. Yeah, aside from that, those are my shout outs, I think, for my own project. Yeah, final thoughts. I don't know. I'm gonna say this right here, just because I can't turn off the teacher thing. For any producers that are listening that feel like they're not getting anywhere, or feel like they just started and they don't really know how it's ever going to work out, or if it's ever going to work out, I can tell you from experience there is a direct one-to-one relationship between the amount of time you spend and the dedication to that project and what you'll get out of it. And these huge artists that are out there killing it, the Ephroms, the G. Jones, Skrillex, these people, it's easy to put these people on a pedestal and think we'll never, ever, ever get to that point. And I mean, that'd be tough. I feel like that's a huge ask to get there, but they're all just normal people. And they all were just very dedicated to the craft, had a student mindset about it. And that's one of the most important things, is keeping a student mindset, not feeling like, oh, I should be good, or I can't do this because who will judge me, or things like that. That's my best thing I can say, is just put the time in and it's going to work out.
Awesome. This has been Young Dave Invites with Hello Ego. The rest of this episode will be a guest mix by Hello Ego. Keep it locked. Thanks to John Hello Ego for being on the show.
Thanks for having me.
More music and less talk.
our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
all black, all gang. Out that chain gang. Still screaming out that chain gang.
Tell me on the Tell me on the Tell me on the original bad boy. Tell me on the
Human beings have dreams. Even dogs have dreams. Imitation of life.
stuck.
Fuck the bank, fuck the drug, I'm on cloud nine. I'm better, fuck the bank, you so fucking fine. Now bring you back to life and shoot you in your fucking face. The black face, to the page, while I burn waste. Uncle body high, touch, doesn't rock, will lay you down. We got enough to go up, we can fuck with me. Yeah, I pull up and make it a scene, yeah, I pull up and bust it a beat.
Some boy get slow. Run it. Some boy get slow.
System. System.